Hey, Jim. You with us? There you go. Aloha.
Oh, sorry. Me and my mouse were not getting along. How you doing?
All right. I was just telling everybody else I'm just going to start this, kind of introduce the subject, kind of the run of the show. I'm going to do some comments up front for 5-7 minutes, hopefully, on what's happening in Congress. Where do I get into this? Then introduce each of you, and then I don't know what the protocol is. Who's the senior member of our crew here? Is it Dr. Robinson or Stacey in terms of the overall overall?
I would vote Dr. Robinson first, and then since Stacey's new, we'll let her go second. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I'll pick up whatever slack is left.
and Kelly.
Okay, it is now 11, so I will tell you folks when we are live. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay, you are live.
Good morning and aloha to everybody watching in. I'm U.S. Congressman Ed Case, and I'm coming to you live from my downtown Honolulu district office before I red-eye out tonight, as a matter of fact, back to Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill to try to close out this 117th Congress. Each Congress goes for 2 years from early January to early January. And so that means that we have another 5 or so weeks remaining in the 117th Congress. We have a lot of work left. The biggest piece of work we have left is the fiscal year 2023, the current fiscal year appropriations bill, which we need to finish by the end of the year, or hope to finish by the end of the year. But we also have a number of other critical issues to finish. And of course, I'm not only getting through all of that, but preparing for the 118th Congress, which again starts very, very shortly. This is another one of my live roundtables on various subjects of concern here in Hawaii. My goal being to share my own initiatives and directions and areas where I want to work and am working, but also to introduce you to some real experts that do this work along with me, and to listen, obviously, at the end of the day, to you, our veterans community, your concerns, answer your questions, and take guidance on where we need to focus going forward. Just an overview of the next hour and a half, maximum hour and a half. I'm going to just do some introductory remarks on my side of the aisle. Then I'm going to turn this over to introduce our incredible cast of guests here today, which I'm really pleased about. And then we're going to get to your questions and answers. Many of you already submitted comments and questions to me directly through the Facebook comment part of my advertisement of this event, and or directly to my email. You can still submit questions and comments directly off of the Facebook Live feature that you're watching right now. We'll pick them up and get to them. So with that quick intro on what we're up to, I will simply give you a quick report. First of all, of course, we are closing out a month in which we celebrate Veterans Day. I personally was at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, which was wonderful to be back there with our veteran communities to celebrate Veterans Day. And I say, as your member of Congress, one of your members of Congress, part of your federal government again, my deep appreciation, my deep thanks for your service. This is critical to our country. You have served. And I would also say, in the same spirit, that simply saying thanks is not enough, because we all undertook as a country an obligation to you for your service that is manifested in a number of federal and other programs, and we need to deliver on that obligation. And that's our job, is to make sure that we are delivering on the promise made to you and to your families. And that's what this is about. How are we doing? How can we improve? That happens all across our country. Here in Hawaii, we have somewhere around 112,000 veterans on all islands, which creates its own issues, all situations. And of course, we're not just acting for you, but for your families as well. We also here in Hawaii do act for our Pacific Ohana, because so many of our services are provided to our friends throughout the Pacific and our veterans living throughout the Pacific. And I know that we have already gotten some comments from you as well on your own particular issues in countries such as Palau and the Federated States of Micronesia and elsewhere. And our undertaking to deliver benefits and services for our veterans does not depend on where you live in the world. That is our responsibility. Here in Hawaii, we centralize a lot of that in the Pacific, and so we really speak to a broader ohana here in Hawaii. I want to just take a moment to talk about some of the areas that I am focused on our veterans in Congress. I think the first, and I focus on our veterans in a couple of different categories. One is national policy. What are the national undertakings? What are the national approaches that we take for all of our veterans throughout our country? How do we fund those programs? Here is where most of my work is done, which is on the House Appropriations Committee, which does in fact fund our federal government. I'm finishing my 4th year on that committee, and I'm also finishing my 4th year on the subcommittee on military construction and Veterans Affairs, which is responsible for all funding of our veterans programs. A very small group of us that are focused there. That not only is a matter of funding, but obviously also providing oversight of those programs to see how they work. We also work in the area of how to make sure that our veterans programs are helping our Hawaii. And then finally, we work on what we refer to as casework in our office, any congressional office, which is individual services to our constituents. And veterans constituents with issues relating to veterans programs is one of our highest areas of focus for our individual constituents. To give you a quick report on each of these areas, first of all, I already talked about appropriations, which is easily the majority of my work in the veterans space on a national level, as well as here in Hawaii. We provide somewhere in the range of $150 billion of discretionary money for our VA programs every year. That's been increasing every year that I've been on that subcommittee and on the appropriations committee. I don't think it's enough, but it is more than it was. And we obviously need to be sure that we are funding these programs, but also having those programs operate to deliver those services efficiently. If you add in the non-discretionary side of our budget, which are benefits that come to you automatically, they're not subject to Congress appropriating them every year. We're really talking about $216 billion. Other areas that have been of particular focus over the last couple of years for veterans issues on the national level. We have just passed our honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxins Act, or the PACT Act, a major advance in terms of our undertaking to veterans for service-related disabilities from exposure to very harmful toxins. We have some of my experts on the call with me that'll get into the PACT Act, but it's very important that we roll that out, that you have access, that you can register for potential coverage under the PACT Act. We want to make sure that that works for you. We are also trying to make sure that a major initiative passed some years ago, which is Maintaining Internal Systems and Strengthening Integrated Outside Networks Act, or the Mission Act, which is trying to strengthen our veterans healthcare system to be a comprehensive system of both internal and outsourced outpatient in the private community, undertaking to cover veterans as and where and when they need it is successful. And that's been a huge undertaking with a number of different factors that are still unresolved. I think they're heading in the right direction, but they're certainly not where they should be. We have focused a lot on telehealth because especially as we've gotten through COVID, we've understood that much more of healthcare related services can be provided effectively and efficiency through telehealth. That's particularly important to a state like Hawaii, where we're a series of islands, and it's not as easy as other states to just drive down the road to get your services. You've got to get professional services in a way that works for you in your community, especially if you're not here in Honolulu. We have worked very, very hard on the fastest growing sector of our veterans community, which is women veterans who have not kept up. The services have not kept up with that growth over the last decade plus, as we've seen that rapid growth. And so we have both funded and created, improved and funded programs that are far more directed to women veterans in particular, and to families. There's also a number of other different bills that have been passed or introduced. I think I'm on about 47 specific bills in Congress this particular Congress. I can get you that list if you'd like to get a sampling of them, but they cover the gamut of services, both existing and proposed. Here in Hawaii, a couple of the areas where I focus in particular on how the federal services actually translate here to Hawaii. One area would be our Native Hawaiian veterans. We have the largest population of Native Hawaiian veterans in the country. We have tried especially to focus on issues of particular concern to Native Hawaiian veterans, including housing, which of course is a concern to all veterans through our housing loan programs, and make sure that those are funded. We certainly have worked at improving our veterans facilities. One particular continuing issue, which I've been on for all 4 years that I've been back in Congress, is sufficient parking at Tripler and the Spark Matsunaga, the veterans facility there. We are making headway, but we got to stay on that one. We're clearly trying to complete our advanced leeward outpatient health facility, the Aloha project, which is under construction in Kalailoa as we speak, and which has been delayed a bit in terms of finishing construction, but very much looking forward to that facility opening and providing real services in a broader perspective of the community, as well as taking the load hopefully off of Tripler and Spark Matsunaga. And then finally, a particularly concerning area is simply housing, affordable housing for veterans, especially for our veterans that find themselves without housing. In the most recent point in time count, which is the annual count of our homeless, we saw both nationally and here in Hawaii a decline in the number of veterans that are without housing. So that's good news. However, we still have hundreds of our veterans who are in that situation and should not be in that situation at all. We fund homeless veteran programs nationally to the tune of almost $3 billion. That money comes here to help out programs and efforts to get our veterans housed. And of course, we do try to help with affordable housing specific to veterans through programs such as HUD-VASH and vouchers focused on veterans in particular. Those programs are utilized by many veterans, but in my estimation are not where they need to be either to handle the full range of issues that veterans are in need of assistance on. And then finally, before I kind of just wrap up my direct comments, I wanted to go back to the casework side of this, because this is an area where we particularly want to help veterans with your own concerns. We can talk about the national issues. We can talk about helping Hawaii in particular, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, are these programs translating to you personally and to your families, and are they able to reach your particular needs? I said earlier, veterans casework is one of our largest areas of assistance in our office. The others would be immigration, for example, and tax-related issues. Many of the requests that we have for assistance have to do with claims applications where decisions have been delayed, and veterans simply want to know where the claim is at the moment. We can help you to get that answer. We also have received many requests for service records for the purposes of establishing service connections in many areas, or just lost or inaccurate DD-214 records. So we can try to track those down to you. Also, long-term care assistance is a big area, and housing to try to get access to those programs. But here's the bottom line. We want to hear from you on your individual concerns. That's our job. We have people in my office, veterans themselves, who specialize in this area, who've been through this in their own lives. And so please utilize us for that. The way to get to us is ed.case@mail.house.gov. Okay, I've talked too long myself, with apologies. I've got a lot more to say, but I don't want to take any more time away from the folks that I have joining me here today, who are the real experts in delivering these services to you, and who I want to help me to answer your questions. So I'm going to introduce them very briefly, and then I'm going to ask each of them after I introduce you to. I'll introduce you all first, and then I'll just start asking you to give your own overview of where things stand, what your kuleana is, what you worry about, what you want our veterans to know here, and then we'll get into some questions. So first of all, we have Adam Robinson, Dr. Adam Robinson, who is the director of our VA Pacific Islands Health Care System. He's been on the job now for 2 years. It's been a wonderful addition to our VA community. Here, he has a long career in the VA healthcare system. He has just a ton of experience, starting with service in the U.S. Navy up to the rank of admiral, and then going on to a post-career contributions with the Veterans Administration. So he's here to talk in particular about the PACT Act. I think we all want you to know everything about the PACT Act, but also anything about especially veterans' health. I also have Stacey Bonnett. Hope I got that right. And Stacey is our brand new director of the Honolulu VA Regional Office. She is on the job. She's not actually here yet. She's transitioning from her current job as assistant director of the St. Louis VA Regional Office, where she's been since 2018. Going back before that, she served in a number of regional offices and has really been in the area of the VA and the Veterans Services for some decades now. So she's gonna take over the VA here in Hawaii in some. And so we're going to all make sure she's up to speed as fast as possible, but she's got all the experience to do that, and we welcome her here to Hawaii. We also have Jim Horton, who is known to many of us. He is currently the director of the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, or Punchbowl, where he's done a fantastic job. Has been there for, I think it's about a decade now, right, Jim? Former career in the Air Force as a pilot, and can definitely answer your questions on cemetery and burial benefits, but also knows a lot about all of the other benefits. And then finally, Kelle Raitz, who is a supervisor of our Veterans Services counselor, who has been in the area of Veterans Services counseling for decades herself. She is physically on Kauai, but helps out all over the state. And I think she's kind of the go-to when any of us don't know any questions. She's probably the person that's going to be most in the weeds on all of this stuff. So I really appreciate each and all of you joining us here. I've worked with all of you except for Stacey. I'm looking forward to working with you as well, Stacey. And we're looking forward to your joining us here real fast. With that, Dr. Robinson, why don't you just just say what you want to say. What maybe, you know, a little bit more about your job, what you're most worrying about. Some of the questions that you get asked the most, so maybe we can answer them before they get asked, and then the PACT Act.
So Congressman Case, thanks very much. I really appreciate your introduction, and welcome to everyone that is here with us today. And Stacey, we have not met, but I've heard your name and I see you now. We're meeting virtually for the first time, but welcome to our team here in Honolulu. Again, Congressman Case, thanks very much. My job here is to make sure that veterans get the care that they need when they need it, where they need it, and how they need it. It's not really harder than that, but it's also not easy to always do that. With that in mind, we have tried to make ourselves available to our veterans completely in everything that we can, so that we can make sure that they get the care that they need and they deserve. And also, they're eligible, their family members can also be serviced too, and be given the type of care that they deserve. With that in mind, we have several things. What's on my mind now is just a very quick read of vaccines and the fact that we have flu, we have COVID, and we also have respiratory syncytial virus. I'm not going to try to belabor this. This is not a call for anything other than to be very reasonable and responsible. Flu is a killer and has been for many, many decades, actually centuries, but certainly the influenza pandemic of 1918, in which approximately 30 to 40 million people were killed worldwide, was a catastrophe. We're not involved in that type of catastrophe now, but flu still kills every year. We have a wonderful vaccine for flu, and we also have a quadrivalent vaccine for those individuals 65 and older. Please get your flu shots. Number two, and I'm telling all veterans the same thing, so this is information that goes out repeatedly. Secondly, COVID-19, we have a bivalent vaccine that is very effective against all forms of COVID. Please get the vaccine if you're eligible. A couple of points that people should keep in mind. Today in the United States, I'm talking about continental United States mainly, there are over 300 COVID deaths. 90%, or I shouldn't say 90%, 9 out of 10 of those deaths are patients or people who are 65 years or older. So it's having a huge issue with our older individuals. Please get your vaccine, it will help. Respiratory syncytial virus, please wash your hands, wear your masks, and stay clear of people who are particularly vulnerable. Who are they? Children and older adults. So those three things I'd just like to throw in to give you that. We're having, by the way, according to in light of the vaccine efforts, the Kehi Lagoon on Saturday, December the 17th from 0730 until 1300, we're having a vaccine and an outreach program. We just concluded the same sort of program in Guam, a community call in Guam, which resulted in over 200 new veterans enrolling in the VA, in VHA. And American Samoa, we have a community call going there. As a matter of fact, I'm sending a team there this afternoon that will be in American Samoa to make sure that we can give the care that we need in those areas. Let me just say a few words about the PACT Act. It's a huge deal. I think I don't want to parrot President Biden, but it really is a huge deal. The PACT Act stands for Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxins. That's what PACT stands for, the Act of 2022. It's named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, unrelated to me, honoring his service and also his sacrifice for our country. The act includes and actually affects all of the veterans that have been involved in Gulf War and in multiple wars, actually from Vietnam all the way through to Afghanistan and Iraq. The key to the PACT Act is that there are toxic burn pits and there are other toxins that men and women were exposed to in war areas. And we have not been, in the past, we have not taken those toxins into account for the illnesses and also the cancers and all sorts of other debilitating diseases that have occurred. So the toxins include air pollutants from burn pits, from oil well fires, sulfur fires, and a variety of others. Chemicals, this is where Agent Orange is really big. And the key to Agent Orange is it not only includes the men and women who were in country in Vietnam, but it also includes men and women who were in the airspaces. So if you'll remember, carriers come off the coast of Vietnam, fly into the country, are then sprayed or contaminated with Agent Orange and land back on the carrier. The carriers are then cleaned and the planes are cleaned, but Agent Orange exposed many of the men and women, but made it in the 60s, it was all men who were exposed to Agent Orange. They are now included in the Agent Orange cohort of patients. Radiation, nuclear weapons testing, X-rays and depleted uranium, warfare agents, chemical warfare agents, nerve agents that people were exposed to, and occupational hazards such as asbestos, lead, fuels, industrial solvents, radiation, vibration, noise. Those are all included. This is not an exclusive list. I didn't get to everything that's listed, but it's a very important list of toxins, and we hope that you will keep those things in mind. Who is eligible for the PACT Act? I'm not going to go through the eligibility because there are 4 categories. Those categories come online throughout this decade and also into 2032. I would emphasize this point. If you are active duty and if you have served in the last 20 years, you should apply for benefits under the PACT Act. Let us tell you that you do not qualify. Don't assume that you do not qualify. I really ask everyone to assume that you do qualify and apply for PACT Act. How is that going to happen? First of all, the VHA and the VA, I should say, but with VHA, has authorized 32 new facilities, new healthcare facilities that will come online. We are anticipating approximately 3 million new veterans who will apply for care. And we are staffing and actually enhancing what we can do for our veterans in order to make sure that we care for those numbers for the next several years. This is not going to be a one and done. This is going to be an iterative process that starts now and will continue for the next decade. So this is going to be complicated, but the key is you need to apply for healthcare benefits. I ask everyone who has served in the military, I'm not talking about just those who have retired, but men and women who have served need to come in and ask and see if they can register for VA care and at least determine their eligibility. And then if they are eligible, they should also determine their eligibility to participate in the PACT Act. Let me just give you, I'm going to finish with this particular bit of information. How can veterans apply for VA healthcare? First of all, if you'll call locally, if you're in Hawaii, calling 1-800-214-1306, 1-800-214-1306, we can give you information as to how you can apply for your veterans benefits in Hawaii. This is a local number. This is a VA Pacific Islands Healthcare Center number. I give it out a lot. It actually works. People will answer the phone and we can help you with that. There's also a toll-free hotline that is national, that is open from Monday through Fridays this is Eastern time, by the way, Monday through Fridays, 0800 to 1900. Excuse me, 0800 to 2000. That is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that number is 877-222-8387. Again, that number is 877-222-8387. So with those in mind, please apply for your benefits. We will help you through the process to make sure that you complete the right forms. We will determine eligibility and requirements. Please do not determine on your own that you're not eligible. Let us do that. And I would ask everyone, again, just to reach out. Please, if you're not vaccinated for flu and for COVID, get vaccinated. They are life-saving. Those are life-saving vaccinations. With that in mind, Congressman Case, I'm going to turn it back to you, and you can pass it on to the next person.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I just want to add that if anybody has any questions about anything, you can not only email me at ed.case@mail.house.gov, but you can also call my Honolulu office, which is 808-650-6688. And you heard it from Dr. Robinson. To make the PACT Act fully effective, we are asking everybody to register in order that we can determine whether you are covered. Don't try to answer this for yourself. It's a complicated law. It's got twists and turns to it, and there's no sense in you simply trying to kind of, dissect the entire thing. Just make the application, and we'll get that answer for you. Doctor, I'm just going to do this a really quick question, but hopefully you can hang around for further questions. But here's one. Can we just walk into the VA in Honolulu to get any of the vaccines you mentioned, or do we need to make an appointment?
You can actually walk in. I think that just to be careful, it would be really nice if you could call ahead. However, if you're in the area and you're here, and let me also ask people to do this. If you're suffering from colds or upper respiratory infections, if you think you have a cold, please go ahead and call us first, because we're still adhering to masking procedures. We're still doing some of the public health interventions that need to occur. We have to do that in our healthcare facility, and we also do it in our community living center, which is our nursing home. With that said, if you're in the area, if you're a tripler, we're in the ACC at Tripler and also the E-Wing. You can go by the clinics. If you're registered with us, you can come in and we can give you your vaccinations. By the way, you can get your flu vaccination and your COVID vaccination at the same time. That is safe. There is nothing wrong with that. If you're in doubt, again, 1-800-214-1306. But we will take care of you. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Okay, Director Bonnett, what is on your mind? It's unfair to ask you to really comment fully on Hawaii here, since you're not here yet, but perhaps you could just talk a little bit about the national issues that you are particularly focused on, because I think those are going to apply here in Hawaii. And of course, you're going to have to learn the ropes in terms of how the VA actually shakes out here in Hawaii. But obviously, you've already done a little bit of homework and you've got some thoughts. But floor is yours, and we again welcome you.
Well, thank you, Congressman. I appreciate the invitation. The main thing on my mind today is to follow up on Dr. Robinson's speak about the PACT Act and kind of what that means for us on the benefits side of that. So VA has really been working hard on implementing this landmark legislation, and veterans have already begun applying for these benefits that they've earned and deserved. And as a matter of fact, the day after the PACT Act was signed into law, veterans set an all-time record for online disability claims filed. And so I really want to encourage veterans and their survivors to apply for these benefits now. Instead of phasing in the conditions over the coming years, as outlined in the legislation, VA made the decision to make all conditions in the PACT Act presumptive for benefits as of August 10th, 2022, the day the bill was signed into law. But veterans must file a claim within 1 year of the bill's enactment, so by August 10th of 2023, in order to preserve that effective date. If veterans file after that date, then their effective date for payment will be whatever the date they filed their claim on. VA is prepared to begin processing these benefits on the earliest date possible, which is January 1st of 2023. So even though we're not processing these claims yet, we do highly encourage veterans and their survivors to apply for these benefits now. We will hold the claims, and then starting on January 1st, we will begin processing PACT Act claims. We also have set up a website, a kind of a one-stop shop website where veterans and their families can go and learn more about the PACT Act. That's va.gov/PACT, P-A-C-T. And already we've generated over 2 million unique views on that page as of October 24th. And there, veterans can find more information about the conditions that are included in the PACT Act, other eligibility requirements. But I would just highly encourage veterans and their survivors to file the claims now. If they have questions about whether or not they're eligible for VA benefit, for compensation benefits under the PACT Act, to certainly reach out to us or come in to see us into the regional office and we can help assist. But really not to wait for that January 1st date. Apply now. We will hold those claims and then we'll begin processing on January 1st to ensure that the veterans get the earliest possible effective date for these claims.
Thank you so much, Director. One other area, we're going to drive home the PACT Act throughout this conversation, I'm sure, and we'll do a lot of subsequent outreach ourselves because we want it to work. And before we go back to you for a second, Kira or Derek, Dr. Robinson has posted a couple of contact numbers in our chat room, and as well as a link to the VA outreach event that he mentioned. Can you please make sure those are posted over to the VA to the Facebook page that everybody's watching, because I think it's probably just in my chat room here. Dr. Bonnett, I talked earlier about how in Congress we have really been playing catch up, and I think pretty successfully, but not fully, on women veteran specific healthcare. And here in Hawaii, we have one of the highest rates of women veterans pro rata in the country. In your experience, where are the areas that we particularly want women veterans to know that we are, providing services, perhaps where they don't know that there are services available for their particular needs?
Thank you for that, sir. I would say for us in the regional office, each VA regional office has a women's veterans coordinator, someone who is does outreach specific to women veterans and can help address if there are questions or concerns from our women veterans. That individual is there to kind of help provide that assistance. And so each office has one of those. And certainly if women veterans come into public contact, that's always someone that you can ask to have come and help and assist.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. Jim, you're Kuleana. What you worry about for veterans, all the questions that you particularly get in your area of responsibility?
You bet. Thank you, Congressman Case, for hosting this event. And Stacey, welcome to the team. You and I will get to talk later today as well. So a couple of themes for us right now. The biggest one is access to burial options. From that standpoint, Punchbowl is undergoing another expansion. So we've been working on this for about a year, probably about another 8 or 9 months left with this expansion to continue offering first interment options for urns for cremations here at Punchbowl. So even though the state cemetery at Kaneohe has plenty of space available, there's still a desire by our local veterans to be able to be interred at Punchbowl. So the VA is continuing to look at all options going forward. This current expansion will put us out to about 2034 timeframe in terms of available space. And there is at least one more project beyond that that is not on the books yet in terms of being funded, but that would allow even more expansion for here at Punchbowl. And the other part of that is just services to the veterans while they're here at Punchbowl. One of the things that kind of was overlooked when we built the new administration building about 5 years ago was we took out the visitor restrooms and the gravesite locator kiosk that was so convenient near the flagpole as you come in. And so thankfully, everybody listened eventually. That is being a restroom and kiosk gravesite locator is being constructed right now. Again, should be open and available by next summer. So those two access points are perfect. They're good. Probably the only other big thing, we've got multiple major projects that are on the books and being constructed now. So from now until probably about summer of 28, we're going to be under some kind of construction projects specifically for the families. Again, our interment shelters are older. They are of not a VA standard in terms of size and capacity. When some of our Ohana show up, we'll have 30 to 50 people show up for service. They're just not sized for that. So the next project that should get underway sometime in the 2024 timeframe, and will be completed in 2026, will expand those two shelters. So they'll replace the current shelters. The big theme beyond or intermixed with all this construction is, even with all this going on, none of our services will be interrupted. The first priority is always taking care of the veterans and their families. So we're not stopping any interments. We're not changing anything other than taking care of the families. We'll make sure that the contractors are the ones who are affected by any issues in terms of trying to get the job done out there. And the other big one for us locally, Congressman, I know you and I talked about it, American Battle Monuments Commission, the agency that owns and operates the Honolulu Memorial, have been in the process of trying to build an interpretive center here at Punchbowl. And that decision of that location changed a couple of months ago, thankfully for everybody involved. So again, that project to build that interpretive center will happen as to be essentially added on to the memorial itself at that location. Makes perfect sense. We're all glad that the right decision was eventually made. But again, it will be a disruption, or at least construction ongoing up there, but it will go on concurrently with one of our projects. So we're kind of trying to get through the pain and rip the Band-Aid off as quick as we can to get everything up to speed. So the monetary support from Congress is greatly appreciated. It's helping us a lot. We just got to get through this. Some folks may have seen the KHON2 had a piece on the news on Thanksgiving Day. It not only affects Punchbowl, but it occasionally affects our state veteran cemeteries as well. And that is, there are vases that families purchase to be part of the gravesite there for their convenience, but they can tend to turn into more of an emotional distress area or item, because occasionally those vases will start walking around on their own. People will, if their vase is missing for whatever reason, will go and grab one from somebody else's. And these are not insignificant. Some of them cost upwards of $1,000. So you've already got a somewhat of a sacred site at somebody's gravesite to start with. And then I would echo the sentiments of the family member that was part of that news piece that we participated in. And that is, please respect others' gravesites as you would expect others to respect. So our only other piece for us is just the utilization out there. I think you and I, Congressman, have talked about before, but the utilization rate of our national and state cemeteries is only about 10% of our eligible veterans. So there's a yin and a yang here. You have to be careful. You better be ready if you start advertising and asking people to utilize that benefit, that we keep up with growing and expanding the cemeteries to accommodate it. But again, this is a very costly benefit on the civilian side that we provide to our veterans. And I would implore veterans to take advantage of it more so than what they do. Other than working our homeless issue, and especially our homeless veteran issue, which again affect us around our cemetery. We've had a couple instances and episodes of helping the homeless out, but also helping to keep them out of the cemetery. That's the only other issue for us that I really want to pass on to folks right now.
Okay, thanks so much, Jim. Just a couple of clarifications. You said earlier, at present you have space available until 2034. But was that burial or interment?
That's just for cremation, for urns.
Okay.
So that's first interment option, right? So that is available space for current veterans and their spouses. Right. I know we've talked about it in the past, but the other thing that we have available at Punchbowl is a limited number, almost continuously, of grave sites available for casket interments. And that's again, normally we are getting those grave sites by way of the efforts that the POWMI accounting agency is doing their identification work on the unknowns from both World War II and Korea. So our getting a grave site back to utilize or to make available for a local veteran and their spouse is a secondary benefit of those families that didn't know what happened to the loved one from one of those wars. So yes, we still have, and so I would ask if a family is wanting a casket burial site at Punchbowl, it is time of need. So when a loved one passes, reach out to the scheduling office and they will call us. They will ask if we have a site available. We will assign it at the time. So it is literally, like I said, a time of need thing. And we can't guarantee that we have sites, but almost continuously we have sites available. So we will make every effort.
Okay, thank you. And then I did see the construction when I was at the Veterans Day services up behind the ceremony site. And that's what you're referring to when you say that you have an ongoing project there, but that's also where the American Battle Monuments Commission interpretive site will go.
Correct, correct. They will build right onto the back of the actual memorial. So it will physically be attached to the memorial and makes the most sense. So yes, back up behind to the left of the memorial is where we're building the new columbarium. And that's where the second or the follow-on project would go as well, probably 4 to 5 years from now. So hopefully we'll get a little breathing space between projects, but
Okay, well, we'll come back to you with a couple of questions, but thanks so much for taking care of Punchbowl. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Kelle. So you probably, I mean, everybody here covers a broad range, but you're in touch with veterans every day. I mean, maybe I could just ask you a very broad question. What are veterans most concerned about, and where do you have the most needs for your own services as our veteran services counselor? What do you think veterans need to know that they're not getting the information about?
So thank you for asking. Number one is that veterans need to know that their military discharge document, whether that's a DD-214, a WD-AGO if they were in World War II, or an NGB-22 if they were in the National Guard retiree, that's the coupon for all VA benefits. So a lot of families and veterans don't have those documents. And without those documents, they cannot get their benefits. So I always refer them to NPRC. They can go online to NPRC, National Personnel Records Center, and they can request those military documents. And or there's a paper form, the SF-180, where they can apply for their military records, including their discharge documents. And we say that for, these veterans filing for the PACT Act, it's going to say that they were in the Republic of Vietnam. It will give the years, that are eligible for the PACT Act, as well burial benefits. So a lot of times a family will call and they want to bury their loved one at a veteran cemetery, but they don't have access to their loved one's discharge documents. So we really propose that the family know where these discharge documents are, that there's multiple copies. Maybe a daughter or a son of a veteran will keep a copy. So that is really number one. That's one of my passions, is to make sure that every veteran has a copy and a family member knows where it is, so that they can access these benefits, because without it, it can delay.
And that should be now, right? I mean, every veteran should just go ahead and get that discharge document now, whether you are thinking you may need veterans benefits or services or anything. You just have it on hand, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I would add to that this is one of the largest areas of concern is getting those discharge documents out of the National Personnel Records Center in a timely way, especially during COVID. They were behind by, what was it, a year and a half or something like that in terms of responding to requests. And of course, you know, if a veteran came along and needed to access services right then, which many did for COVID or related purposes, they couldn't get them in a timely way. So, you know, luckily that backlog is now down substantially. So we're not talking a year and a half anymore, but still, this is, I think, the right advice, which is just get it now, whether you ever think you're going to need it, because you might probably will need it at some point.
Yeah, we actually had a veteran, the burial was delayed, and then they never got the wish of at a veteran cemetery because nobody, including the FBI or the National Personal Record Center, could find the veterans' documents. So, you know, to have it up front and be ready for any type of situation. Yes, I encourage that. And then also, I want to second the motion of apply for any benefit with the VA, not just the PACT Act. Unless you apply, you do not know. And so many veterans tell me they didn't know that they were eligible. And until you apply, you don't know. But there are many benefits to be had for veterans. Also, I want to make sure that people understand that the Office of Veteran Services, who I represent, is an accredited agency under the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we're not the VA, we're not federal, we're state. And the state has additional benefits as well. So there's federal and state benefits. And that we are a liaison. We work for the veteran, with the VA, back and forth on policies, individual cases, all of that. But to note that there are unaccredited, right? There's television commercials now. There are scams. We do not charge money for our fees, any fees for our services. Same with VA. These are free services for the veteran and their families. If an agency says they want, you know, a portion of their award or any fee upfront, then they are not an accredited veteran service organization or a part of the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we really warn, especially our kupuna, you know, that, you know, these services are available to you for free. Your benefits are free. So we encourage them to, you know, contact an accredited VSO.
So bottom line, if somebody is offering to counsel you on your veterans benefits for a fee, it's not an accredited service. It is probably a scam. And even if it's not a scam and that person actually does know what he or she is talking about, you can access these services for free with people that actually do know what they're talking about, including the VA itself and you. And by the way, my office too, or any of the other congressional offices. We obviously don't charge for our services either. You've already been charged for our services. So through your taxes, we try to do that. Okay, and I'm sorry, Kelle, when you say the Office of Veteran Service, you're referring to the state, right? The state of Hawaii Office of
State of Hawaii Office of Veteran Services.
Because we do have, as you've already pointed out, besides the Federal Veterans Administration, the Federal Veterans Services, the state has its own office focused on veterans and its own supplemental or additional or sometimes separate services under state law. And so it's not necessarily that just because you have exhausted your possibilities with the federal VA, that something may not be available at the state side too. So you really need to check both. But you, although you're a state employee or paid for by the state, obviously know the federal system, called and work closely with your federal counterparts. And by the way, so do we. I mean, we work not only with the federal VA, but with the state as well. And Stacey, the relationship between the federal and state veteran services here has been real strong.
Very strong.
Part
Very
of
strong.
being a small state. Everybody can't avoid anybody. You see them for lunch downtown and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Kelle, anything else? Anything else? What do people need the most help with after just getting records and getting some basic advice? I mean, what are they mostly worried about? Healthcare for sure. That's always huge. Housing. We haven't really talked about housing.
Well, and housing, I've worked for Catholic Charities, Supportive Services for Veteran Families, and US Vets. And those are additional agencies that have helped, that we work together with VA to get housing benefits for the veteran aside from HUD-VASH. So
Okay.
supportive services from veteran families can pay up to 6 months. I used to go into the bush and bring veterans out and get them these resources. So there are other agencies that work with VA to assist the veteran. There are
Okay.
resources.
How do people get in touch with you? Do they have to live on Kauai to access you, or are you statewide, or
I
how does that work?
actually am specific to the island of Kauai currently. The Office of Veteran Services statewide has 6 vacancies. So if you know anybody eligible, we encourage them to apply. But so right now I'm helping Colonel Ron Hahn, the director of the Office of Veteran Services, if he needs assistance. So I'm crossing the island line right now if necessary. I'm one of the most senior counselors. So,
And how do
I
people,
offer my assistance.
what's the best way to the Office of Veteran Services for counseling? How do people actually get your services?
They
Yep.
call
What's the number?
808-369-3535. And yes, Oahu right now they're the most affected by staffing. So they have kind of a wait list, but we here on Kauai, we're current. We're about 2 weeks as far as getting an appointment, about 2 weeks in advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 808-369-3535. And if you're a veteran and you want to continue your service, you can serve your fellow veterans by signing up again, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Kelly. Hang on. I've got probably some questions. So I'm just going to get into a couple of questions and it'll probably take us into some further discussion. This is probably for Jim and maybe Kelly, because I know you're passionate about this too. I am a World War II vet and received the Congressional Gold Medal in the Honolulu Presentation Program on May 2018. I believe that was the Filipino World War II vets Congressional Gold Medal. I'm now 96 years old and may soon go to my eternal rest. Am I eligible to have a lot in the Hawaii Vets Cemetery? Is there a Hawaii Veterans Cemetery? Jim, what's the? I think could you just lay out kind of the connection between the National Memorial Cemetery, the federal cemetery, and we do of course have state veteran cemeteries on most of the islands.
You bet. So the eligibility up until, well, currently still is the same. So your eligibility for a interment in a national cemetery or a state cemetery are still the same requirements. And I don't want to run through the whole gamut of it, but the bottom line is prior to 1980, you didn't need to serve very long. If you were drafted and literally made it through maybe training and never even deployed for a conflict, you were eligible. After the 1980 timeframe, you needed to serve 2 years continuous. So the eligibility is the same for the state. Now, in this summer, the states are now given the option of guard and reservist, but it is a state option to implement that availability of interment in a state veteran cemetery. So for a Army guardsman from Hawaii who only trained and never deployed or was never activated, they would normally not be eligible for interment in a national or state cemetery. But with this change, they can be if the state chooses to implement it. So for Hawaii at this point in time, the governor and the legislature is still basically there is a cost. There is a money associated with this. So it is a cost that will be borne by the state. So the state is still looking at funding this, and it is not implemented yet. But the bottom line for the answer to the individual. I would have to look at their service record and what they did in terms of whether they are eligible. It sounds like off the top that he probably is, but I could let Kelle talk to it. I do want to circle back really quick on Kelly's comments earlier about getting your affairs in order. There was a mutual project that was done by VBA and NCA, the Cemetery Administration. There is a booklet that is available to veterans, and both the VBA and us make it available. And it is essentially a preparatory, getting all your documents in one place, basically making everything much easier for your family members. And also, the government is bad about storing records, but they're getting better. And if you do the pre-need eligibility, which is basically checking to make sure you are eligible before you pass. So in other words, the veteran goes ahead, submits his DD 214 instead of making the family members look for it after he or she passes. That way, again, the Cemetery Administration has that DD 214 electronically on file. The approval is already there for the family, but it is another avenue for the family to get to those documents, to get copies of those documents in the future. So.
Okay, great. Kelle, anything to add, or are we good on that?
Yes, no. So the pre-need is for national, not state, correct?
It actually can work for both. So at present, if the state enacts the option of the Guard and Reserve, the state can then expand that option. Excuse me, but the pre-need, the state folks who want to be interred in a state cemetery can still do that pre-need and file for it. It doesn't reserve a spot in any given cemetery, state or national. But it is a backup. In my mind, I look at it as like a USB stick. It's another place where their records can be stored for future access.
Great, excellent. Yes,
Jim, just to really confirm this, for our state veterans, you don't have to be a Guard or a reservist to serve. I mean, you can be a full-on veteran as long as you fit the same basic requirements as it would take to take access to services for Punchbowl.
Yes.
And many actually do, because for example, our Hawaii State Veterans Cemetery in Kaneohe, they have eligibility for decades and decades and decades. They don't have your space constraint issues. Right. And obviously that's a beautiful cemetery as well. And our federal government does contribute to the cost of veterans through the Veterans Burial Services to the state. So we do subsidize. Probably not enough, but we do it. So there is a close connection, and you can make that choice.
And sir, if I can add one more thing, one of the positive things the state changed a couple of years ago was to foot the bill for the spouses. Again, this is a state option, so going between different states, the state benefit is only for the veteran, and it is up to the state if they choose to fund the interment of the spouse. So an interment in a state veteran cemetery is not automatically conferred to the spouse, but Hawaii does pay for the spouse to be interred. So that is a positive for our state, that they do take care of that. And I think maybe that was a hesitation in years past for our veterans to use the state cemetery.
Yeah, and that's a shared grave or a shared niche in a columbarium. So there's stacked graves or double urn columbariums, and that is a huge cost savings for families. Here on Kauai, the costs can be, over $10,000 to bury a loved one. So it's a wonderful benefit for the veterans. And Kauai State We're very involved with our local Kauai Veteran Cemetery. We just expanded, so we don't have any constraints at this time as well. But to answer Mr. Ariola, if he has a copy of his WDAGO, because he is a World War II veteran and has honorable discharge, then the family just needs to make sure they have a copy of that. And veterans can be buried at any veteran cemetery. If they choose, we have veterans coming from off island. The families will bring them from the mainland to be buried on Kauai because maybe that was their favorite place to visit, or maybe Oahu, where they were stationed at one time. So it's any veteran cemetery, but I love the idea of doing the pre-need to be sure and having the paperwork ready, and then the veteran communicating those wishes with the family. You know, let them know what you want. Do you want military honors? Do you want to be placed in a casket? Do you want cremation, etc.? So I hope that answers Mr. Ariola's question.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. And yes, Victor, if you have any questions or need some help, you can email us as well, and we'll get that answer, or at least navigate the answer for you. ed.case@mail.house.gov. Okay, Dr. Robinson, I think this is a good one for you. This comes from a gentleman who is a former deputy chief of mission at the Micronesian, so Federated States of Micronesia Embassy in DC, now a consultant to the FSM, Department of Foreign Affairs. And he comments that as a result of the compacts of free association, which are our national treaties with the three countries of the compact, Palau, FSM, and the Marshall Islands, we are seeing more veterans returning to their home countries, or some veterans just choosing to live in those countries. But these are veterans with real needs. They're in very small countries, a long way away from everywhere else. And he comments that we have real veterans issues. And I would also add that I was myself in Palau about 2 months ago on a congressional delegation to that part of the world. And we met personally with the veterans community in Palau to discuss their issues. And as you could appreciate, their issues are access to the full range of veteran services that they have a right to expect in a very, very small place with one hospital and with not really widespread healthcare services. So they have to, often travel the long distance to Guam and then on to Hawaii to actually get a certain degree of care. Of course, this is not unique to Palau or any of the other countries. We've had this discussion about Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, and I was on another congressional delegation some months ago in Tunisia. Same basic issue. Veterans who were Tunisians who had served mostly as interpreters in the Middle East the last 20 years. U.S. veterans entitled to veterans benefits, and how do you deliver those in a situation that's not downtown Honolulu, because that applies here in Hawaii as well, or on the continent around major veterans healthcare centers. How you've been trying to make real strides in this area, especially with telehealth. Perhaps you could just comment back to the gentleman on kind of that issue and where telehealth fits in.
Congressman Case, thanks very much. And I appreciate the question of the COFA nations and the fact that the COFA nations generally have the largest percentage of, according to their population, of men and women who are joining our armed forces. So this is an issue, because then at the end of their time in service, these men and women go back to these countries. I've been told, well, they should stay in the States, but I always say, but they're going home. So their home is Palau, the Marshall Islands, or Micronesia. Let's do a couple of things real quick. I'm going to I don't know if deconflict, but I don't want to conflate Guam and American Samoa, which are U.S. territories, with COFA nations. So one of the issues with COFA is that they are men and women who serve in our armed forces, but they are living in non-U.S. territories. So the nations that they're living in are not in the United States. Why does that matter? Because although we can go and recruit from those areas, Congress actually has not given the VA the ability to go and render healthcare in those areas. So healthcare can be given to those individuals, but they must seek healthcare within the confines of either a territory or the United States proper. And that's probably, I mean, that's the wedge in everything that we're doing. With the what I have been trying to do in the VA Pacific Islands is, since we have 2.6 million square miles, we have made great inroads in the Saipan, Tinian, and Rota. So those areas are doing well. We have made, it's interesting because Congress has not placed the Philippines in that restricted category. So we actually have VA facilities, both healthcare and VBA in the Philippines. So we have some countries that have a large number of US veterans that we cannot give care to. I'm hoping that we can change that. Let's get to the telehealth. When I say change it, it's going to need to be a congressional, there has to be a congressional change to the title. I'm not sure which title it comes under, but there has to be a congressional mandate that gives us access to those areas. We are able, in many instances, by the way, another aside, DOD is actually able to go into the same areas, the COFA nations, and give medical care. They can do med caps, and they can do actual medical assistance in those areas. The VA is not allowed to do that. So DOD can do that. With that in mind, we'd like to extend telehealth, but by the same token, telehealth means that we need to have or establish the telehealth facility in an area that would give us or allow us to come through and put the facilities up. And I'm not sure what prohibitions we would encounter. I am going to tell you, I suspect that we would encounter prohibitions either locally with the government or the local officials, but more importantly, I'm not sure that we wouldn't encounter some sort of prohibitions based upon what we're trying to do from a US perspective. So this is a complex issue, and it's a real conundrum. But the issue is this: if we could be allowed, I must say that I'm going to give you a personal view here. This is not VA policy, but my personal view is that we should take care of veterans in COFA nations, and I think that we could take care of veterans in COFA nations, but we are restricted from doing that. And until those restrictions are eliminated, it's going to be very difficult to do that. Those veterans are eligible for care and will be given care if they come to Oahu, or if they go to Guam, or if they go to American Samoa, or if they go to continental US. But that is problematic of it in itself. One more thing, those veterans are also capable, and this is again problematic, but they are capable of getting both Medicare and Medicaid benefits, which would help in terms of payment of hospitalizations, et cetera. But again, they're only eligible for that within US territories. Not a satisfactory answer, but I think that's the truthful answer as to what's happening with COFA.
No, that is the reality, and we are looking at changing those requirements to accommodate a broader range of services in the COFA nations. Many of them are actually going to the Philippines to get their care, because that's the closest facility or facilities where they can actually access their care.
Many are also going to Guam, just so you know.
Going to Guam,
Yeah, they will go to Guam also. But anyway, but those are long. Both are long. Both can be long traveling. They can be. It's a travel, so it's a distance.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. I am down to about 15 minutes, and I've got a couple of questions here. So I'm gonna kind of start to do speed answers, and then if we don't get the stuff, then we will have to ask people to reach out, and I'll get answers. To Greg, thank you for co-sponsoring HR 6501. to amend the essentially to extend honorary citizenship to otherwise qualified non-citizens who served in the Philippines during the Second World War. I'm a co-sponsor of that. I believe in that bill. It is related to other bills that extend veterans' benefits to them where they are still living, the few of them that are still living, and in some cases to their families. You asked whether we're going to get that done in the next 5 weeks. To be honest, it's doubtful, but we are trying to get some of those bills into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a must-pass bill for the next 5 weeks. If we don't, then we're going to keep going the next time around. To Elisa Peta, who commented on veterans' families impacted by Red Hill. I take that comment very, very seriously. We've been deeply involved in Red Hill for well over a year now, since the spill in November. And as to specific health concerns, you should absolutely bring your health concerns forward, register if you haven't already with the military. There is a registration process for potential long-range healthcare concerns, so you can track over time. The military, in connection with its Joint Task Force Red Hill, which was set up a couple of months ago, has a specific health care component. I believe they're about to have a public hearing in this space, and I believe that they are focused on health, and I can assure you that your congressional delegation is focused on your health. So if you have a specific question, a specific issue, please contact my office and we'll make sure you get your answer. We do not want any healthcare concerns to go unaddressed at Red Hill. Okay, can I get a waiver for our veterans on HARPTA tax withholding? This is the Hawaii Real Property Tax Act, which essentially requires a withholding when you sell your property. My understanding is that military members are exempt from HARPTA, but I don't know for sure. That's just my preliminary answer on that. So if you can contact us directly at ed.case@mail.house.gov, we'll try to get you a better answer on that. Let me take care of a few more here. Let's see. If a veteran is seen for emergency mental health care at a community hospital, can that veteran get reimbursed, and which VA team should be contacted for assistance? So I assume that that's a state community health center or community hospital, so a non-VA facility. If they needed emergency mental health care at a community hospital, can they get reimbursed, and where should they go for assistance? I'm not sure who the best person to ask that of is. Kelly,
Well,
I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson.
Yeah, let me just take that one. And Kelly and anyone else, I don't want to jump in front of anyone. Any veteran who is has a health or psychiatric or mental health or a physical necessity which leads them to an emergency department can certainly come back. If they're eligible for care in the VA, they can certainly come back to us, and we will help them deconflict and sort through exactly what they're eligible for and how they can pay. If they are enrolled in care with us, if they're enrolled in care with the VA and they have an emergency need, whatever that may be, then they can get reimbursement for that care in the community. But we need to just need to look at exactly what is occurring and what has happened. But that is certainly a legitimate, and it's something we do all the time. So I would ask you to please just call that 1-800-214-1306 number, and we will try to get you to the right person. And the other thing is, let me go ahead and do one other thing, and that is, if you just excuse me, let me get it. As I'm falling out of my chair and making a lot of noise, let me just simply say, you are also, please call me at 808-433-0101. That's my office number, the director, and I can help deconflict and actually get you where you need to be. So don't hesitate to do that. That's 433-0101.
I'm going to write that down for me too. I can use that number.
Well, you can use another number if you let me know.
Thank you, Doctor. Let's see. Long-term care options for vets through the VA or the state. Kelly, can you do that one? We obviously do long-term care for our vets, but just a little bit on that and where to get information.
Okay, yeah, so long-term care, there's currently one long-term care state home in Hilo, in the Big Island, and then there's a second home being built in Kapolei, the Daniel K. Akaka home, and that will be ready about 2024. And there's, of course, medical criteria, and Dr. Robinson could probably answer that more specifically. Again, I'm benefits, not health, but when a veteran is service connected at 70% rating or higher, he does become eligible for long-term care. And so again, that's something they would talk to their doctor, their VA doctor, and calling the home directly. But there is medical criteria. They also, age 55 and older, they must be a resident of Hawaii and must require skilled or long-term nursing home care as defined by the VA, MedQuest, Medicare, or a certified physician. Of course, it's space available, and they must meet all the patient clinical criteria for admission, and that is a process. But we're working on that second state home. Hopefully that will help a lot. And Dr. Robertson, did you have anything to add to that?
I'd just like to simply say that we have a community living center here in Oahu. It is filled, but you can certainly apply for admission there. We also have the capability of placing veterans who are eligible for long-term care into local nursing homes. And so it is possible to get, and we try to put, in most instances, we try to put those homes close to family so that people can visit and that there can be family involved in the care. But we have long-term care both with the CLC and with local nursing homes, and the state has the same thing. And then there's the state veterans home that's going to be opening very close to the Akaka Center in the Kapolei on the western side of Oahu. So those are available. Thanks, Kelle.
Okay, and Derek or Kira, there's a couple of more contacts and other information to put over on Facebook from my chat here. And my staff also reminds me to Kelly's point previously about fraud and scams being operated against our veterans, that I did co-sponsor. That is a subject of congressional attention. We especially have a bill, which is HR 8736, which would protect veterans from benefits fraud by imposing criminal penalties on unaccredited veterans benefit claims representatives who use unethical and predatory practices. That was introduced by my colleague Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, and I'm on that bill together with over 100 of us members of Congress. So obviously we've all been hearing the same thing from our constituents, and I frankly would expect that bill to pass. Probably not this Congress unless we are able to put it in one of the end of year bills, but certainly the next Congress. It's a very topical area. Okay, this has to do with going back to the subject of housing, especially for homeless veterans. And I'm just going to read the question. What efforts or systems are in place to find housing for homeless veterans? I've tried contacting the VA rep of Housing First program and one of the agencies, EAH, weeks and weeks ago, but neither have responded to my inquiries. My guess is that it may not be functioning as it should be, if at all. I'd love to hear what anybody has to comment on these particular issues. I don't know who's the best person to ask that. Kelly, are you the right person to ask on housing? I mean, first of all, I should say that and there are a couple of other questions that are along the same lines, which is shortages in the VA and delays in responses, which is an issue and which everybody is working very hard to address. But We haven't gotten to the point in any of our services for VAs where we really have kind of that immediate response. Maybe in some areas, yes, but in many areas, veterans are not able to access the information they need right away. So what about this particular question?
Well, for homelessness, again, that is an issue on the island of Kauai, of course. There is HUD-VASH, and we have a local HUD-VASH representative that goes into the bush and finds these homeless veterans and hopefully gets them connected with housing. Kauai is limited on housing for veterans. Oahu, we refer a lot of veterans to go to Oahu. There's a lot more resources on Oahu for veterans. But again, like I mentioned earlier, there are outside agencies like US Vets and Catholic Charities Supportive Services for Veteran Families. That again, we work with the VA and the Office of Veteran Services to do what we can to help these veterans in need.
Yeah, I would simply, and I just visited US Vets some about 8 weeks ago or something like that. Spent a morning with them. It's incredible work that they're doing. Richard, if you're on Oahu, take Kelle up on that. You can contact us and we'll try to get you in touch with one of those agencies, but you shouldn't have to be waiting like that for the answers that that you need. Let's see, a quick question on reauthorization of acupuncture treatments through community providers. We've worked with you, Dr. Robinson, on this and others for full access for some time. Any update from that perspective?
No, the only thing I can tell you is that I think complementary medicine, of which aromatherapy, chiropractic are a part. I think they're really excellent, and also massage. I think they're really excellent modalities of care. And I think that if veterans are receiving benefit let me just give you an example. We're in an opioid crisis, or have been, and we're trying to get people off of opioids. If we can employ other modalities, such as chiropractic and such as acupuncture, which both have been proven to be helpful in pain and in musculoskeletal conditions, then I think that is a very positive push towards a real way to get care for patients. With that, there are lots of people who have different thoughts. I just happen to be a physician, and I'm allopathic, trained in Indiana University, but I think that complementary medicine, chiropractic, and acupuncture are very good. So I would ask anyone that has an issue, if they call my office, let me at least look into exactly what their condition is and what their issues may be, and we'll go from there. But I'm in favor of it, and I think it's very helpful for our veterans, both at Baltimore when I was there, in Maryland, and here in Hawaii.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, we're down to our last couple of minutes, and I just wanted to give each of you a quick lightning round to comment on anything that you heard or that you especially want people to know. Maybe a couple 30 seconds each. Stacey, so you were listening the whole time, so that here's an advance about some of the issues that we worry about. I think some of them will be old to you, and some of them will be a little bit of refinements and new to you. But any observations? Anything in particular?
Thank you, sir. It was great getting to hear from everyone today. The one thing I would say is, for veterans and survivors, don't hesitate to come to us first. If you're looking for documents or you don't feel like you need to gather everything that needs to go with your claim before you can file it. File your claim. That's what we're here for, in connection and partnership with your accredited representative, and we'll help you get those documents. So don't feel like you have to have everything before you file your claim. File the claim, and we'll help get whatever is needed.
Okay, Stacey, we look forward to welcoming you. Dr. Robinson, we drove home, I think, or you did at least, get your flu shot, get your COVID and other vaccines. You've got your healthcare event coming up at Kehi Lagoon on the 17th. We posted that. And finally, you all have talked about the PACT Act, which is just really a game changer and should be a game changer for many of our vets and how we want everybody to apply now. But anything other than that?
I just like to say, if you're in doubt, call. If you're in doubt, ask. Please do not determine that I'm not eligible because you really don't know that. You need to call us and let us know. So if you're there and you think about it, you probably should call us and let us take a look and help you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Kelly?
Just one last note on the PACT Act, which we're really busy with claims. We are encouraging everybody to apply, and they're heeding that call. Survivor benefits. It also affects survivors of veterans that have passed that may have been eligible had this law been enacted at the time of their passing. So that's a whole nother section that we're working with the survivors, trying to determine eligibility and get them the benefits they deserve as well.
Great. And Jim?
Just one more echo on get your paperwork together, help your family members out by putting all your important papers in one spot. Make sure everybody knows what you want to do and where you want to be. And it makes life a little less stressful at a very hard time of life.
Okay. Well, thanks to each and all of you for joining me today for a quick outreach to our incredible veterans and your families throughout Hawaii and the Pacific. This obviously was not sufficient to cover all of the issues. There are 1 or 2 questions that we need to follow up with you directly, but hopefully what we've conveyed is the areas of focus and the areas of concern, the areas that are really available to veterans, and the areas of improvement. I've taken some stuff from this that indicate continued focus up in Congress on both the appropriation side and the oversight side and the development of new laws side. So for me, it's been a very, very productive hour and a half. We thank you again so much for your service. Please email me if we can help you, or if you have any other questions, ed.case@mail.house.gov, or call us at 808-650-6688. So for my guests here today, this is Congressman Ed Case signing off. Aloha. Have a great holiday season.